Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, welcome to Robert Sports Show. I'm your host, Robert. Alright, to continue the NASCAR theme, we have my top 7 favorite drivers in NASCAR history. I started watching NASCAR in 1986, so almost 30 years of watching NASCAR. I brought it down to my 7 favorite drivers of all time. Alright, number 7 on the list is Bobby Allison, leader of the Alabama gang. He had 84 career NASCAR wins. He was the 1983 NASCAR Winston Cup champion. He drove in his 25-year career, drove in 718 races. When I talk about the Alabama gang was not a gang like you would think, like a shooting gang. It was Bobby Allison. It was his brother Donnie Allison. It was 2 friends of theirs, Red Farmer and Neil Bonnet. 4 guys from Hueytown, Alabama, who broke into NASCAR in the 60s and 70s, and just as a group, ran together and raced together and were friends. Um, Obviously, as time went on, their kids got into the sport, and matter of fact, Donnie's grandson is actually in the process of trying to come up through the ranks of NASCAR currently. Number 6, my 6th favorite driver of all time is actually Bobby Allison's son, Davey Allison, the late Davey Allison. Davey had 19 wins in his NASCAR career. He was a 1992 Daytona 500 champion. He was the 1991 Coca-Cola 600 champion. He was Rookie of the Year in 1987. Unfortunately, Davey lost his life in an airplane crash in 1993, July of 93, at the Talladega International Speedway. Him and Red Farmer, a member of the Alabama gang, they were going for a test session, I guess, and something happened when they went to land and the plane crashed, and Red Farmer survived, but unfortunately Davey perished in the crash. A young talent who the late Dale Earnhardt said multiple times in interviews, if Davey wouldn't have gotten killed in that plane crash, Dale Earnhardt would not be a 7-time champion. Davey would have had a championship or 2. Davey was able to align himself with the 28 Havoline car owned by Robert Yates, one of the greatest teams. In the short span that they were a team, he had his teams, it was one of the greatest Ford teams in NASCAR history. Number 5 on my list, Ken Schrader. From Fenton, Missouri, 4 NASCAR victories, 763 NASCAR starts. This guy drives anything with wheels. NASCAR, the Grand National, the lower division, trucks, dirt cars, modifieds. He just goes from track to track in races. That's all he's ever done. He owns a dirt track in South St. Louis. He's all about racing. The roots of it. He just does it because he enjoys it. He's done different TV interviews and different as an announcer several times for NASCAR, and he's just great. His name's Ken Schrader. Number 4 on my list is the king of NASCAR, Richard Petty. 200 career victories, number 1 all time. Tied for number 1 all time with 7 championships. One of the greatest drivers in his era in NASCAR history. I believe he began racing in 1963, and his career ended in 2000. And 1992 was his last race, and his first race I believe was 1962 or 63. Won 200 races in that time. His 200th and final win came in 1984 at the July 4th Pepsi 400, which the only time a sitting president has ever been in attendance for a NASCAR race up to that point was when Ronald Reagan was at Daytona when Richard won his 200 victory. Number 3 on the list, Mark Martin. Mark Martin raced 882 races in his career. He had 40 wins. He never won a championship. He finished second in the points 5 times. He is the greatest NASCAR driver never to win a championship. His closest shot at winning the championship was in 1990. He was 10 points away. He lost the championship by 10 points. Unfortunately, that year, he got fined and docked points in the second race. He got docked 20 points for an illegal manifold on the motor. It was bracket instead of welded, and they deducted 20 points, and that actually cost him the championship. Number 2 on the list, we have Jeff Gordon. Jeff Gordon's career began the Atlanta race in 1992, the last race of the season, and 2015 Daytona 500 will be his last Daytona 500. He announced after the 2015 season he is retiring from full-time Sprint Cup Series. He may race a partial schedule, but obviously he owns half. He'll be in the ownership role in Henry Motorsports. He owns half the current team he drives for the 24 car, and he also owns half of the 48 car driven by Jamie Johnson. So Jeff will still be around the sport, but 2015 will be his last race, his last full season running for a championship. And with that, there will be some spotlight videos starting this weekend, and every week through the season I'm going to do a spotlight of a NASCAR one stick-up driver, which that series will end after the final race of the year with a spotlight of the 2015 Sprint Cup champion. Obviously it may be a redo spotlight, but I'll do a spotlight of whoever the champion is, and throughout the season you'll see spotlights of different drivers throughout NASCAR history. The first spotlight video will be Jeff Gordon. He's one of those guys where I was a fan of NASCAR when he started, and I'm a fan of NASCAR when he retired. There's not been too many that have a long career like that I've said, hey, I was there when he began, there when he ended. I was a fan of his from day one. I'm still a fan. My number one favorite driver of all time in NASCAR, the late Alan Kulwicki. Alan Kulwicki had 5 wins in one stick-up series. He was the 1992 one stick-up champion. What made me like Alan Kulwicki so much, he was an owner driver. He did things his way. When unfortunately he was killed in a plane crash April 1st, 1993, and on the way to Bristol, Tennessee. One of his favorite sayings was "My way." He did things his way. The song "My Way" by Frank Sinatra was sang at his funeral. Alan had a engineer degree from Wisconsin, and he was a stock car driver. Not only could he work on the car, he could set the car up. He knew every in and outs of that car. Most of the time when you go to the garage area and went to interview the driver, he's under the car working on it. So he was, the man's man of drivers. He was, I always wanted to be when I was younger. I wanted to be a NASCAR driver. He's somebody I idolize. I wanted to be just like him. Owner, driver, do it myself, do it my way. It was just, it was ironic how it was April 1st that he was killed. I'll never forget that day. Overnight when I heard it, I always had the radio on when I went to bed, and I woke up a little bit to hear the news, and I heard him say NASCAR's champion, Alan Kulwicki, passed away in a plane crash. I thought it was an April Fool's Day joke first, till I woke up and heard it again. Went, what the heck? Turned on TV, and they said it, and I'm like, you could have knocked me over with a feather. That moment to realize that, the reigning and current Winston-Cup champion had passed away, it was just one of those moments that you'll never forget. There's other moments like that throughout my 30 years of watching NASCAR. Any true NASCAR fan will have the same type of moments. These are those moments you'll never forget. And Alan Kulwicki winning the championship in 1992, Atlanta 500. The fact that these NASCAR cars are 5 speeds. He tore a little gear out of it, so he's taking off in second, so he couldn't take off as fast as Bill Elliott or whoever and the other people running for the championship. So he knew he couldn't win the race. So his only shot of winning the championship was lead the most laps and get the 5 bonus points and finish second to Bill Elliott. So that's what he did. As the race kept going on and on, we ended up having green flag pit stops. Bill Elliott came in. Alan Kulwicki was leading the race. He wouldn't come in. The announcers are like, okay, the pit window's 45 to 55 laps. He's pushing 55, 56. Why isn't he pitting? He's going to run out of gas and cost himself a championship. And the crew chief kept saying, Alan, you need to pit. He's like, no, a few more laps. From the driver's seat, he figured out how many laps he had to lead in order to clinch the most laps led. Once he clinched the most laps led and Bill Elliott could not get those bonus points from him, he pitted. he finished second in the race and won the championship. So just remembering that race, and that race, looking back all these years later, you had Davey Allison running for a championship. He passed away in 1993. You had Alan Koike winning the championship. Alan died in 1993 in a plane crash. You had Richard Petty, the king of NASCAR's final race. You had this kid in the 24 car, DuPont, later called the Rainbow Warriors, Wonder Boy, Jeff Gordon, making his NASCAR debut. Here he is, all these years later, third most winning driver in NASCAR history. So you never know, one race could make that difference and have that much impact. 23 years later. So as always, thanks for watching Robert's Sports Show. Stay tuned for my top 7 Daytona 500 moments. Out of 30 years, there's got to be 7 good ones. As always, thanks for watching and have a great night.